Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It is your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our brand new friend, Lance from Warehouse 9 Productions. We're here to break down not only his history creating films, but creating indie comics as well, and everything in between. Lance, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I am, where do we even begin? I mean, you have such an expansive history with just creation in general. I know we're here to talk about Bob the Non-Union Psychic, but first and foremost, you know, what came first, films or comics for you?
Oh, films, without a doubt. That was it. Yeah, the cinema hit me first, and then it kind of tapered off to comic books.
So when you first started creating film, like how did that look like for you? You know, when you first made, I guess, your first break into the scene?
It's been a long time. Started with a short film, Knights in Shining Armor out here in Colorado. Tried to do something radical, shooting it on film, which helped me transition to a feature film a year later. And then there was a pretty big lull in production for a while, until I hit it again pretty hard in about 2018 with remastering the feature film and getting distribution for it. We're just waiting for a place for it to land right now. And hitting the festival circuit with a lot of short film content that we've created, which also kind of segues into Bob Non-Union Psychic, because we're working on a spin-off film of the book itself.
So cool.
This spans quite a couple of decades.
So what was that feature film like? You know, what was the title? What was the concept of it? Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of it?
Yeah, it's called Hunting for Fish, and it's a heist, diamond heist chase movie. You know, a comedy action film shot entirely here in Colorado. Fun little film. I mean, it was back in those days when you can still create those indie darlings that would stand out. And before the market kind of crashed, it was a heck of an ordeal, a heck of an experience. I was very young. It was very difficult. I wouldn't trade the difficulties and all the hardships for anything, because it was well worth it.
Yeah.
And right now, you know, I got into a film festival. It was eligible for distribution. I didn't take that particular distribution. I went a different route. And now, you know, it's just waiting for a place to land on a legitimate streaming platform. So, you know, it took a lot of time, energy, and patience to get it the way I wanted to. So that was another reason. We're going from the standard definition to the HD world, and I would say that remastering process was extremely extensive. So, but it was economically feasible. It's economically feasible to do it today, whereas it wasn't 10, 20 years ago. It was just out of the realm of possibility.
I would say it feels like the advancements we've made with technology has probably made film production a little easier, I would almost imagine. But again, I've never created films. So would you say that it's maybe started taking steps in the right direction to make it more feasible to create films, or is it harder?
It's technology-wise, to create videos, it's easier. I'm not saying the quality is better, and I'm not going to say that people are doing a better job, but it's definitely in the creator's hands now. You can do it all on your laptop. I mean, you can do it on your phone, which, you know, I don't recommend doing, but you can do it all. But I think the quality of the work is really degraded because of it, because now anybody can do it. Anybody calls themselves a filmmaker, anybody on the planet, and anybody can win, you know, an award. It's a different time. I think the craft has taken a different turn, and there are those that can do it extremely, extremely well, but we are saturated with a lot that's not done very well.
Or it may be a lot of shortcuts too. With, you know, I would almost imagine creating a film or any sort of video media back then, like you had to work harder because you were so limited with what you were able to do. But now with technology, you're able to take more shortcuts, it seems like, and maybe the production value, you know, goes down.
Absolutely. I think that is always a hindrance, especially on the production side of it. I mean, The post-production side of it is the non-linear editing systems and stuff have been around for decades. That's okay to get it to a digital format. It's now up front, people boast that they can shoot a movie for $1.95, and that's great, but it's going to look like it's shot for $1.95. I mean, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
I don't like to lead people down the road of a false sense of security and say, just pick up your cell phone and you're a movie maker. I can't do that. I think you need to understand your craft, study your craft, and get it to a point where you really want to show it to the world in front of a live audience and not sit in the back of a movie theater with your head down. You really want to be able to say, hey, I want to create something, a film or a comic book that I can get to a legitimate publishing or distribution platform and be represented. I think you need to really take those steps to try to be extra professional nowadays, because there are so many people, like you said, taking shortcuts. And that's what kind of saturates the market. That's what hurts all of us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We actually have ASAP Imagination in chat saying Lance is keeping shooting on film alive. It definitely sounds like it. I love just everything that goes into it. What was the next step? Did you see Warehouse 9 production come alive like during this time, or was your work with Bob like the next step? Like where did you go next?
I think Bob was the next step, because you can get disenfranchised pretty easy within the movie industry. You can get weighed down pretty much, and especially when you do a feature, it's a phenomenal task that just weighs on your shoulders immensely, and you just want to make sure it's done correctly. So right after actually shooting the feature film, I started to write more screenplays. At that time, going back 20 years ago, it was a different animal. I mean, the internet wasn't saturating it. You can actually talk to producers and agents relatively easy. You can get information. You could learn more. Mm-hmm. And I had these screenplays. I had Bob, non-union psychic screenplay. It landed on a few big tables. It was ready to go. Problem was, would have been a very expensive movie, and I'm a nobody from nowhere. So that didn't happen, but I wanted to keep that dream alive. And of course, I met Adam Boley, who is my co-writer and editor. He was the comic book guy. He's the guy that knew everything about comic books, how to make them, how to do everything. I'm the movie guy. So we started talking 2014. We had written a couple of screenplays together in the early 2000s, and we kind of just went our separate ways. But we kind of came back together, and I mentioned the idea about what about adapting one of the screenplays to a graphic novel form, and he was down with it. We had other ideas, and ultimately I said, well, what about Bob? Let's try this. And we felt it had the commercial ability to be able to make more of a splash than some of our other hardcore projects that necessarily wouldn't have been commercial friendly at the time. So we went with this, and we were like, okay, so let's just introduce the story from a 120-page script, a feature film script. Let's do a book zero and kind of just introduce this character. Let's condense that entire script into the first 30 pages and see if it'll grab, see if anybody cares. So that's what we went for, and it turned out to be pretty fruitful. People were paying attention, and then we said, well, let's do a couple more books. Let's round out a trilogy.
Oh, that is awesome.
Let's develop this, which then turned into the graphic novel that you see now, the Big Book of Bob, Volume 1, which is all 3 books with supplemental materials. So we kind of did like you get, how you get those DVDs or Blu-rays, and you get the director's cut, and you get all the supplemental materials. That's what we wanted to do with the book. Show more art, have an introduction, advertise the film that's going to be based on it, all that stuff. Just put it all in there and throw it out to the world.
So coming from a history of creating films, when you were first presented with the idea of taking this and making it into a comic or going into the comic like direction, what was your first initial like thought when you were presented with that? Was that something that you were instantly like on board with, or did it take a little bit of convincing?
Instantly on board. I mean, it's going to come to life. So you want it to come to life. And how do you do that? Comic book was logic. It was written for the screen, but it is a cinematic book. So I think that's kind of the idea of saying, okay, this will work. I think we have the right components. We secured the right components with Francisco Resendiz, our artist, and just making sure we can make this book as high quality as we possibly can at an independent level. Sometimes indie has a stigma of so-called being low budget. Not true. We wanted to make sure that we can compete with the big dogs and have a product that looked just as good, if not better. So we took pains for that on the production side. So that's the film side of me talking. That's saying, okay, we need to make sure we nail this, and we need to make sure it looks phenomenal and the story is great and people can identify with the character. So I was on board.
Would you say that your history creating films like kind of just made you like overqualified for comics? Like, since you had outstanding ideas of perspective views, because initially when you create a script in a film, like you're designing a camera or a comic on screen, right? Would you say like going into this after creating films like just made you like that much better?
I would say, it was a learning process with 100%. Comic books, there was a learning curve. So I had to learn from Adam, how many panels per page is right, how many words should be in the dialogue bubbles, looking at the layouts when we first got it. I mean, even the process of hiring an artist, we were overwhelmed. We put the ad out, we paid. It wasn't an overwhelming amount. We put the ad out to the world that we have this psychic book that we're trying to create. And boy, we were just amazed by the art we were getting. I mean, people from Spain, Korea, South America, I thought the Americans would step up. They didn't. And it was like, okay, our top 3 guys were like Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. These dudes were knocking it out of the ballpark. And looking at their styles, what caught us about Francisco is that he's an animator. So cinema. I was seeing cinematic angles. I was seeing cinematic aspect ratio in his art. So I think this is the guy for us. We're going to go a little cartoony, but when it gets violent and serious, people are going to pay attention because it's more poignant. But he nailed it. So the first book, I mean, he's out of Mexico. There was a mild language barrier, but he got it. All I'd have to say is he's like, well, what do you want it to look like? Well, I need saturation. That's a film aspect for colors. I need texture, which means just no plain backgrounds that are one color or a gradient. Give me some texture, give me something. And atmospheric, a little creepy.
Yeah.
That's all we had to say, and he nailed it. He nailed it, and he got better and better and better. Every book has a different feel and look. So book 0 was that indie book. Book 1, I said, look at Amadeus. Look at all these classical movies I threw his way. And he was like, can I do it kind of like a Rembrandt, Renoir style, but cartoonish? And I said, yes. Then we get to the 3rd book, and he's like, give me a movie. I said, Batman Returns. This book is cold. The Thing. He was like, okay, he got it. So we were able to communicate cinematically. And it translated to the art. And it worked out wonderfully. I mean, we are very proud of this book. We stand by this book. We will put it up there against anything and say, hey, look, this is what indie is capable of. Pay attention.
No, I agree. I think the indie community is in a lot of cases like they outshine the big two because you guys have to work 5 times as harder to get your name out there. Comic from DC has that DC label on it. Marvel has that Marvel label. Indie, your indie guys are typically don't have nearly as much exposure. So when you guys do get in that spotlight, you have to make sure your content's swinging on all cylinders, and it's awesome to kind of hear how everything works behind the scenes. So how did we get Warehouse 9 Productions in this? Did you create this when you were working on Bob, or was this something after Bob?
No, this is the entity. This is the production company, and this was created while Hunting for Fish was being produced. So Warehouse 9 Productions is a legitimate corporation. It is an entity, and the umbrella encapsulates everything production-wise. So that's film, comic books, and whatever else may come behind it. So professionalism-wise, be an entity, do your homework, get your contracts. You know, I have a lawyer. I know all this sounds sometimes out of the realm of possibility, but it's not. All these things help legitimize Warehouse 9 Productions. So when I'm at a festival, or when I'm promoting the book, or when I'm making a pitch to a streaming service, a distributor, or whatever, they know my ducks are in order. But to make sure they check. You know, do I have my contracts? Do I have my copyrights? I own everything. So Bob is owned by Warehouse 9 Productions. Everything, to its logos, to everything on the page, that's owned by us, and it's protected. So that's a legitimacy. No one can mess with that. That is mine.
That's so awesome. That is awesome. What goes into that? Creating contracts, making sure you own rights to your characters and productions. That, you know, as someone on the outside, it just seems like it's so much to have to go through and work through.
It's absolutely, it's heavy, to say the least. But it's part of the process. So when you make the films, you know, you get your production company. You do your business under your production company. You're insured under your production company. So people know you're legit. They don't just think you're someone walking off the street trying to get something done. I approach the comic book the same way. The whole book's copywritten, protected. It's all about the learning process, and these are things this is where people fail. They don't get their ducks in order, and they may have something awesome, and they get to a point where they can get the exposure or maybe secure distribution or publishing, and then the reality hits. Well, wait a second, you don't own this? Well, we can't help you. Get a lawyer, figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what do you mean you didn't get your photo ID signed for your performers? We can't show this on a public platform without that. I mean, there's a lot of things that people try to skirt. They're always trying to take the shortcut.
Yeah.
And guess what? You gotta pay your dues.
You can't take them shortcuts,
Yeah, you don't pay your dues, you may sell yourself short in the end. So try to be something professional up front. Protect yourself first and foremost. Then get your material out into the world.
No, absolutely. So let's start pivoting back to Bob. So Bob, Non-Union Psychic, the Big Book of Bob, Volume 1, is about a renegade psychic, and professional hairstylist as well. You know, how do we see those two intertwine?
Well, you know, I mean, you know all the tropes for comic books. You know, the tropes and cliches are pretty much solidified in comic book writing culture going back, probably 100 years. So the idea is, you know, it was cinematic first, and then now it's a comic book, but it's like, okay, how do we avoid the trope of a hero that doesn't have a Fortress of Solitude, doesn't have a Batcave, you know, doesn't have $1 billion in a bankroll to make something happen. You know, to me, those are story cheats nowadays. Those are outs that your character can take due to convenience. What I wanted to do is make Bob very inconvenient. He's a working stiff. He owns a business. He has a skill and a trade skill that he can take anywhere, anytime. That's his first and foremost love. He just happens to be hyper in tune with nature around him. That's the duality. You know, that's the conflict of his character. And I thought, well, you know, I was looking at all kinds of professions. What, a mechanic? You know, what can he do? But then also, hairstyling was a network situation. You know, everybody gossips, you know what's happening in your neighborhood. So it was kind of his network as well to know what's happening. So it was all about a profession. It was all about not being convenient. And I think it worked out fantastically because people scratch their heads when they say professional hairstylist. Well, you get your hair cut, don't you?
Yeah.
Everybody gets their hair cut. That's your go-to person sometimes. That's a very important person in your life. You don't know it. So it was about the trade skill. It was about avoiding tropes, cliches, and it was about saying, hey, the guy's got a profession and a livelihood he's trying to protect beyond his fantastic abilities. So it was quite a process trying to figure that out at first. But the hairstyling, a barber felt fantastic. It just felt right, and I've never seen that, so I went for it.
Yeah, no, that is such an interesting concept, and I seen a lot of the focus on the scissors, you know, on the cover art of issues 0 through 2. You know, you see it kind of in the swirl, and then in the comic as well, the golden pair of scissors. So what was like some of your inspiration for Bob? You know, like the character design and just like him as a psychic and hairstylist. I know you kind of said it was something that you really didn't see, but like what kind of like drove you to like just create Bob in general?
It's about fighting the gatekeepers. And I'm going back 20 years on this, you know, just say, hey, you know, Bob landed on a couple of, the script landed on some 2 big studio tables, and they killed me with kindness. Hey, it's great, it's awesome. You're not a name. It's going to be too expensive, so we have to pass. Okay, you know, sometimes you want to hear you suck. Don't even bother, kid. You know, that for sometimes might feel better than killing you.
Motivation, right? Like you use that as motivation, but when they're nice, it's like, where do I go from here?
Right, and it was the same with everything. You're always talking to film people. You're always talking to distributors, anybody that can get your project somewhere. And really, I got tired of talking to them. I'm like, you know what? The gatekeepers are really bugging me. I'm not juiced into the system. I don't have an agent. I'm not going to sell my soul. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do it my way. You know, come hook or crook, I'm doing it my way. And basically that's the concept of Bob. That's why he's Bob, non-union psychic. Now, non-union's a metaphor. You know, it could have been non-guild, it could have been non-club, it could have been anything. The idea is that the entity that hovers around him in all these books is the psychic union. And is he good enough to get into it? So acceptance. And the idea of acceptance is, like you said, us indies got to work a lot harder to be accepted. So book 0 is basically his interview. Is he going to get into the psychic union? And no surprise, he doesn't. Bob, non-union psychic, you know, even though he has the skills, the talents, everything you need to get in, politics dictates he's not going to get in. So he just decides, well, screw it. I'm already a small business owner. I'm already a guy that does my own thing. So I'm going to do my own thing anyways, with the help of his great-grandfather, you know, who's his mentor. So now he has to lead not necessarily a double life, but he has a life that conflicts. You know, he's got to help people with their hair, and he's also got to help people in the psychic realm. You know, good energy, bad energy, whatever it needs, because he has the skills and the wherewithal to do it. So it's about basically just saying, all right, gatekeeper, I don't need you because I'm going to build my own gate, and I'm going to let people in. I'm going to open the doors, I'm going to get new artists, writers. So it's a statement. Fight the gatekeepers, man. Don't wait to be accepted.
I love it.
Just fight for it.
Because in reality, I mean, even when you get accepted, 9 times out of 10, it's not what you imagine it to be, right? Like once you finally achieve what you want to get accepted for so hard and like sell your soul for, 9 times out of 10 is not as grandiose as you originally thought. If you make your own path, if you work your way up, that is like something you earned, and that's something that you take with you to the grave, that respect and that honor. I love it, man. This is so awesome. This is great. Man, wow. This is... So with Bob, like what can we expect, you know, for anyone that's just jumping into this for the first time for issue 0, issue 1, issue 2, you know, what type of, you know, conflicts are we going to see Bob come up against? Like what type of, you know, turmoil, or, you know, what type of, I guess, is there going to be any sort of antagonist that we can expect in later issues?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. And it's mostly just the struggle to survive. You know, it's the struggle to hold on to his business. It's the struggle to do what he really feels he's meant for. But there's this force that's always pulling him to the other side. You know, no, you got to help people. You know, there's something bad going on and you need to help dispel it. You need to help cure it. You need to help do this. So it's that constant struggle that I think people can relate to in life when they're trying to produce their art and they have to take care of a family or a spouse. You know, when they're trying to produce their art and have to work that day job that they hate, just to get through it all. You know, I think metaphorically, and it's something to identify with the average reader. I think anybody can pick up Bob and read it and identify with those kind of struggles, but in a very grandiose and fantastic way. I mean, we try to make it as big as we possibly can on the pages. We want it to be fun, and we want it to be, first and foremost, entertaining. But it's also a book that, what I've heard a lot of people say, they read it. They just don't blow through it. You know, they just don't knock out the pages. They have to read it and then look at the art. And I'm like, well, it's what we planned. That's what we want you to do. And identify with the character, which I think anybody could do.
No, that is awesome. So since we built up Bob and kind of everything in between, let's go ahead. We're going to take a look at the trailer, and then Lance is going to go ahead and give us a look at the first 6 pages of it as well. Oh, we're good. Perfect. I love the hard underwear. This art is just mind-blowing, gorgeous. Oh, so your artist is doing the lines and the coloring as well?
He does everything.
Wow.
He does everything except for the lettering.
All right, so let me go ahead and get your screen pulled up. All right, and then Lance is going to take us through the first 6 pages of this. So right now we're looking at the cover. What are we seeing happen on this cover right now?
This is kind of a concept of grandiose, just overindulgence. I mean, Bob sitting on a throne with his people around him is just ridiculous. And the idea of his psychic shield protecting everyone, and all the evil forces trying to get to them but can't, with that symbol, with that swirl with the scissors in the center, which that's my logo. That's what I want to see on every T-shirt, on every kid on the planet. That's our dream. So it kind of shows that there's this guy. What's with the scissors? People it asks questions The cover asks questions. Why is there scissors behind him on a swirl? Why are the demons trying to get him? Why is he in a throne?
Yeah.
It's all about just asking questions so people get interested. And his concept of this was amazing. I think we went through about maybe 6-7 concepts before we settled on this one. I mean, and all of them were absolutely amazing, and you'll be able to see what they are in the book. I mean, they're from the radical to just the ridiculous. So when I say I need a cover concept, my initial idea is A, and then I throw it to Francisco, and he comes back with B, C, D, and it's like, whoa, okay, let's try to narrow this down. So this is the concept for the Big Book of Bob, and then of course every other cover is involved. And like I was talking about, your legalities, your disclaimers, your copyrights, your information on your inside panel page. You need to have that. And this art is funny because it's the art from the ink layouts, but look at how clean it looks. This is what we see after the initial layout. We see this pretty aspect of it, and you can see where the ghosts are in red, and the main characters are just the regular inks. Now he'll send me 2 versions of this, which I love. He sends me the version with just the blacks and then just the red, so you can see where the ghosts are. So in the trailer, that's how I was able to make the ghosts pop up. I was able to superimpose them so that it looks like the ghosts pop up and it was animated. But he had already did that on the layouts.
That's so cool. Real quick, we have Uni joining us over on Twitch with a nice big raid, bringing us some new viewers. We also had ASAP Imagination over on YouTube saying the music was pretty fire. Yeah, I thought the music was phenomenal. That trailer was gorgeous. Was that something that you guys did with Warehouse?
Yeah, I strictly did all of that. I did all of the trailer.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
And the music at the time, I think I got off of Tune Society. I licensed the music from them. So once again, I own that music. So when it can go on YouTube or whatever, I own the licensing to that music. There should be no copyright disputes.
Yeah.
So I paid. You got to help out. You got to help out the musicians out there. I don't know. I paid something like $25 to $50 per track, and I think that was one particular track, and it cost me. I think that one cost me like $65, and it's worth its weight in gold. Yeah, it's worth its weight. How about an artist out there? There's many platforms you can do that on.
No, I was gonna sorry to interrupt, but I was gonna say you're 100% right. For me, I bought this one soundtrack off someone, and I use it for my interviews. I use it for any video, visual content I make. I use it as a background backing track for it. So I mean, it's endless. And the same thing with art, like PNG logos or anything like that. You could take that, put it on shirts, stickers, all that. So you're 100% right with that.
Yeah, and I think, and it's once again, it's a way to support the infrastructure. Let's do that. So it was no problem. I mean, I'm going to edit it and produce it anyways. And what's the problem with paying $65 for a piece of music that you're not going to get hassled about in the future?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do our legal disclaimers, and then you got a nice little introduction here about how this whole process came about. And all the background art, is art taken from every aspect of what Francisco created. I own every bit of that art. So if there was a panel that we didn't use, if there was a page we didn't use, or if there was art that was so big and grand, I can take pieces of it. That's what I did here to create these background layouts, just to keep it a little bit more flourish than using your average white on, black on white. Of course, our logo, which we're always happy to show. An alternate cover, which turned into a poster buy when we initially released this digitally.
I like
you get
this
the book,
too.
And you get an alternate poster, high resolution poster.
So what was the inspiration for this cover?
When it comes to the covers, once again, I go cinematic. So I would tell Francisco, look at James Bond posters.
Yeah, I was getting a Bond
or I
vibe.
would send examples. Or look at Indiana Jones posters. Look at those kinds of posters to give us that nice streamlined layout, looking from top to bottom or bottom to top. So that's the way we design all covers. I always say, give me some room on top or room on the bottom, because this is what I'm going to do. And this was one of the initial covers. actually showing the zombie pygmy babies. But we decided to go with this one because I don't know.
I love how the scissors are almost like the golden gun too.
Yes, you got it. You know, that was basically James Bond. Let's do James Bond and let's texture it out. You know, make sure it's not overly. It has to have depth. So that's why you got those nice paint lines on it. Our old graphics, the old title, which is now evolved. But you know, this is it. This is book one. This is what we sold it on right here. Boom. And once again, you know, you have the disclaimer for the individual books, which I love these layouts he does. They look so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, your artist definitely killed it.
And then we get into the actual prologue, one-page prologue.
So what are we seeing happen within the prologue?
You're getting introduced. The prologue, you know, once again, I like to think of the James Bond movies. You have those scenes before the opening credit sequence to say, you know, let's just get some questions into the story. Let's get some questions into the story. So you know that there's a professor and an assistant robbing a gravesite, and you know they've secured a medallion. So this is the Hux medallion, and it's very bad. He shouldn't be doing this. And in the process, he gets injured, he cuts his hand, which means he's just fed the entity inside that medallion. So you don't know this. This is all going to play out. But, you know, we wanted to hit people over the head with the idea of, okay, what's going on here? We're not starting off with our hero, our character. We don't. So our prologue was designed just to ask nothing but questions so that we could answer it later. And I kind of take a episodic 30-minute television structure when I write these books. It's not written traditionally like a comic book's supposed to be written. I write it like you're watching a sitcom, like you're going to sit down and watch Seinfeld or something. So having said that, that's why we do prologues like this. We just want to have a bunch of questions lingering so that we can answer them later on down the story.
We have Nordic Uni over on Twitch saying they really dig the art in this comic. Yeah, I think the art is gorgeous. Yeah.
It evolves, you know, it totally evolves. So we like the textures and everything. And then we finally get into to Bob. Who is Bob? You know, we get into a shot. We get to see him in action. He's in action. He's cutting hair. You know, he's not.
I love how your artist was able to do the window too. The way you're kind of like looking into it, like that looks gorgeous. The way they kind of like did like the undertone for colors to kind of make it look like you're looking through it with the reflection still on it.
Yeah, it's kind of that opaque. Yeah. So, you know, and we will design it script-wise to do that. You know, we will say kind of where we want it, interior, exterior. We will say those things, and he understands that, and then he just goes with it. So, you know, this is a very well laid out page. You know, we got 5 panels. It's broken up pretty evenly, and you can actually get an idea of what he's up to. So as he's working on somebody, he's having a vision. This guy's a football player. He's seeing something happening in a game, but it's not distracting him from cutting his hair. Same over here, professional wrestler. Is he winning? Is he losing? We don't know, but Bob can see it.
Yeah.
And then we get
does Bob see just like random visions, or is he able to kind of pinpoint what he wants to see from them?
He has no control over it. That's why it's a distraction. It's actually too overwhelming for him at times, so it's hard for him to be around people. But he's in a people profession, which once again is a problem.
Yeah.
So he's able to control it and not be distracted. And in the background, you have his Gramps ranting and raving over the television set, you know, about the Psychic Union and their commercials. So we want to kind of introduce this world of okay, you know, he's got an appointment to keep. It may be a lead to the Psychic Union. He's happy with what he's doing right now. And then we kind of get an idea on the title page, the interior title page, of what he's actually seeing. So when he walks out into the world, this is what he sees. So once again, he can't freak out. He's got to be cool as a cucumber every time he goes into the world. with all this distraction around him. So this is the tip off of everything that the book's a culminate of his dilemma in life.
This is so, like, it's gorgeous too. It's so much to take in. There's so much happening on it. I love how, like, you see like the balance of like real like flesh life like individuals, and then you see like the ghosts and everything up in the air and around them.
Right, and all of that is Francisco. We just say we need to see spirits. We need to see the spirit world. So it's a chance for him to dig in his archives, whatever, and place characters throughout the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I didn't say anything about a tentacle coming up behind a building or this rock star. That's not in the script. That's all him, the genie. And we're like, when we get the art, it's like Christmas. It's like your birthday. You're opening up your present and going, okay, this is better than we had anticipated. And of course, you know, sometimes there's suggestions and edits, like always, but he pretty much nailed it.
We have ASAP Imagination saying, I bloody love that page. Yeah, that page is gorgeous. Like, so when you talk to your artists, how much creative control do you give them? Do you just kind of like give them your idea and let them do what they want to? It seems like they have just been killing it with like every single page.
I think it's well, after character designs, and we agree on the character designs, it's free reign. And if there's anything that we think is needs to be edited or modified, we'll suggest it, and it's usually never a problem. So it's pretty much free reign. It's and when your team's in tune, they're in tune. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah.
So we were all in tune, and that's how it worked out. So, you know, if I say exterior, you know, City University, and then we have the dialogue over it. I don't design the City University. You know, it's night. It's a university. It's up to him to think about those designs, and then once we see it, we're like, okay, the world has been created. You know, interior professor's office. I didn't say anything about some weird skull that's a pencil holder, or you know, or this whatever this creature is in a jar. You know, that's all the artists. So,
and I was gonna say that must mean that they're having fun with it too. Like, this is something that they're passionate about just as much as you are. You know, when they're going to that extreme to make sure it's as detailed as possible.
Absolutely, and that's, as a filmmaker, the director steps on the set, you know, and if I'm working the camera and I'm composing the shot, I'm directing the shot. I'm directing exactly the way that's going to look. Now, it was a bit off-putting at first for me to put that in somebody else's hands for the comic book, to say, okay, now you're the director. And I was a little like, I'm not sure about this. I'm not an overwhelming control freak. But when I started to see what was happening in the first 2, 3, 4 pages, it was like, this guy's got it. Guess what? We don't have to worry about it. And it was a great feeling. Yeah. So, you know, this is the rundown. You know, this is how it all ends up happening. This is it. We had a great time with it, and ultimately too, the goal was to get the book to print. You know, we started off digital, which did well. I hooked up with ASAP, and it was the idea, you know, through the Any1 world, to get this book to print and get it out into the world. And, you know, that's what makes us extremely happy. You know, having your hard copy book, having this thing in your hand.
Speaking of that, let me go ahead and get that link in here too. We're able to actually order this off of the ASAP, right? Any1 world.
Yeah, it's in StreamYard. It's the second link down, I believe.
Let me get that pulled up, and we will put this. Actually, in StreamYard, I got your just the YouTube and then the IMDb.
In StreamYard? Are you in StreamYard?
Yeah, the only thing I've seen is the YouTube and then the IMDb. There's in private chat and in comments.
Okay, how about this?
And then post-production, I'll edit this part out too.
Okay, there you go. Boom. I put it in Twitter.
Twitter? Okay, perfect. All right, and then I'm going to be putting the link for anyone that is interested. We'll be putting the link right here. So So you can pick this book up as well. It is gorgeous. I have the opportunity to check out the PDF, and I want to get it physically too. What type of paper is it printed on? Can you give us a little bit about like the book and like the material?
Oh yeah, it's it comes in either the prestige hardcover, which is what I have here, and it's your heavy bound paper.
Oh yeah, that's gorgeous.
It's very fun, and it comes in paperback, digital as well, if you want the digital download. The book is kind of fun because my editor and co-writer Adam was pretty tripped out about this. If you look on the page here that I have up, you can see there's a border around it. Mm-hmm. That's got the magical blue kind of glow.
Yeah.
Every book has its own chapter cover, I'll call it, or border. So when you look at the book from the side, you can kind of see like which books are in there.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, that's pretty cool.
I saw that done somewhere, and I don't remember where I saw it. I thought it was pretty clever. And the rules are, what are the rules? Do I have to have white borders going to print? We discussed this. No, you don't. So I thought, good. I want to do this so that it's a little bit more unique when it's.
Yeah, I don't think I've really seen many graphic novels done in that fashion. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I've seen it once, and I don't remember. It might have just been a regular novel or something that had the chapters. And I thought, well, let's do that. That'll be fun. So I was able to design that outlet and send it to Paul at ASAP, and it worked well for the print. It was like, hey, that's fantastic. So, I mean, this is the print version, and then of course, the digital version will bleed. Mm-hmm. You get a little more out of it. But I just thought it was fun to do something like this, so you could see the different books or chapters, as I call them, and the production value of the book itself. So I think when you create a book, you create a little bit more. It's like you get the nice pages, you get the borders. You got to make it worth it, so people will want to get it. You got to go the extra mile.
So this is all we're gonna show of Bob, right? Everything else, spoiler territory, correct?
Yeah, we get into massive spoilers.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. Grateful for what you did show us. I always, I love spoiling what I can, but I realize you got to save some juice for people to buy it too. Again, anyone that is interested, here's the link to go and buy it yourself. So, what's next for you? What's next for Bob? What's next for Warehouse 9 Productions? Where can we see you going next, Lance?
Well, we're going to blow everybody's mind with the new film. Coiffier Extraordinaire, Waiting for Lucero. And it's a spin-off of the Bob book. But here's where we shake it up. It's not going to be Bob. It's going to be one of his predecessors from 200 years ago.
Oh.
Another well-known hairstylist that actually exists historically, Lucero de Romigny, a French hairstylist, hairdresser of the French court. This guy was real, and he's in book 1 within the Big Book of Bob. He's featured. We show him. This is based off of a real guy. You can look him up. His death is very mysterious in real life, and we kind of took liberty on that to say, well, what really happened to him and his magical scissors, and how did they get into Bob's hands, his enchanted scissors, and how is Bob carrying the torch? So that's also part of the Bob book when you get it. But now we're going to actually show the man himself, Lucero, fighting evil hair in this short film. Now,
that is so cool.
This has been a 2-year process, not just due to the pandemic, but because how do I do 17th, century France in Colorado?
Yeah.
So we're pulling out all the stops. It's shot on film. I mean, we're doing miniatures, puppets, paper cutouts, green screen. We're doing everything we can to make this look like Jim Henson, Terry Gilliam
so
from
awesome.
the 80s. We got the elaborate costumes and the wig constructs. We have a preview of it in the book. So one of the only places you'll see a preview is in the book. We have behind the scenes shots of this film that we've been working on for 2 years, and right now it's in post-production, and it's in the special effects phase. So every single shot of this 10-minute movie has an effect in it.
That's so awesome.
It has been very laborious. I mean, we have been working very hard on it. We're almost done with the effects, and then we'll get into the sound design. But that's what's taking precedence right now is the film spin-off of the book.
So we have Matt J. Rainwater over on YouTube stopping in to say very fun world building. I love that too. I love how you're kind of taking it and going back with it. Was that always like the idea, or how did you guys stumble across that concept? Because that's a really cool like thing in itself. You know, like what made Bob before Bob was Bob.
Yeah, I mean, the world building is I think is key to anything. I think you're going to think of your characters and your stories a little bit more detailed if you build the world and characters around him.
Mm-hmm.
So even on the Warehouse 9 website, we actually have the world of Bob. You have dossiers of the characters, and you have the locations, you have the artifacts, and we wanted to build a library of that. We wanted to say, okay, it adds a lot of flavor and depth to your story and characters if you have that world around them. So initially, yeah, this was going to be a make-believe place where everybody exists. You know, we don't say what city it is. We don't say what state it is. We don't say where it is at all. We just try to say it's this place and this is what's happening within it. Mm-hmm. And I think that came from the original screenplay. You know, the world was built, but now visually, when you get the art, you're expanding on that world. You're actually showing the barber shop. That is his Batcave. You know, that's his fortress of solitude. That's his livelihood. So you get to see that. And then you get to see City University. You get to see the Psychic Union headquarters. You get to see everything involved in it and all the characters affiliated. So, you know, after you finish the initial books and all that, you come to realize that the world is pretty in-depth. So we want to just be able to show that on websites, in interviews, to say, look, there's more to the book than just the book. There's a whole world that this is based off of, and some historical elements that you can actually look up and have fun with it. In the writing, we really want to be in depth. We want to kind of say, hey, look, there's more to it than this. Yeah, look up Lucero. The guy really existed. It was crazy what he was doing with the hair punch of his day. You know, look up these things. It's really fun. So, you know, that comes with the territory and just narrowing it all down and organizing it into something cohesive and pointing people to it. You know, it took a lot of time, but when you have the assets, you just need to sit down and do it. You just can't sit on the book itself and think that's all there is to it. You really need to go the extra mile.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, this has been such an awesome sit down. I have really appreciated you coming on, breaking down Bob and everything in between. Before we officially wrap things up, though, as much as this show is a nice little introduction to you and your book, it's also a learning tool for anyone that might be new and watching. So kind of with that in mind, for anyone that is like starting out for the first time, whether it's creating film, creating comics, or any sort of medium, and they're having trouble just getting started with the script process, or even just any part of the process, what advice would you give them to kind of help them break through that barrier?
Well, you know, be disciplined. You know, you have to really study your craft. It's not easy. You know, whether I can spin a yarn in 5 minutes or write it down in 2-3 weeks, it takes discipline and it's difficult. So I guess look at your inspirations. Don't copy them. Don't. You know what I mean? Try to avoid those tropes and those cliches, but study it. There are screenwriting programs. There are countless so-called professionals that can say that they can show you how to do it, but still, it's all about your own discipline. So if you're writing a graphic novel, I mean, I was looking at early on Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run. You know, I'm like, okay, I like what he's doing here. I like the whole idea of it. So let's just, you know, let's think about that. And then we created our own world off of it to say, no, we're not resembling anything like that at all, but it was inspiration.
Yeah.
And even in film, you know, if I'm doing a cowboy movie, it's like, okay, I look at the cinema that I grew up with to say, okay, this is how I want it to be this good. So let's just try to do that. You just got to have the discipline to do it. And look, there's a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of things overwhelming people at this moment in time. But guess what? You have control of your art. If you don't take control of it, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. We have J. Michael Miller joining us over on YouTube saying this looks interesting as well. Yeah, no, Jay, you missed it. We took a big deep dive into the art and a couple pages. So if you rewind a couple, I would say about 10-20 minutes ago, you can get a little bit deeper look at it. Lance, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been such an awesome breakdown. For everyone watching, we do have in the comments the link to go and buy this book. Check it out. It's on ASAP Imagination. Get the hardback cover. It is gorgeous. And there's going to be some really cool behind-the-scene looks at the upcoming film as well, right?
Yes. We have a page dedicated to the look of the film and what we're up to. And it's pretty mind-blowing. I'm very happy at how it's turning out.
Yeah, awesome. So guys, with that being said, we are going to be officially wrapping it up. It is a beautiful Thursday out there, and I need to get ready for work, of course. But Lance, once again, thank you for stopping by. I hope you have an awesome afternoon as well. Everyone watching, have an awesome day, but most importantly, keep it geekly.